Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Hello, can you guys hear me?
वालेकुम सलाम जी सर
Okay, today we are going to discuss about the movement which is called post-structuralism in literary criticism. Basically, it was kind of a revolt against structuralism. Today's lecture comprises on these. This is the outline of today's lecture. We are going to discuss what is post-structuralism. It jumps from structure to anti-structure, and also we need to discuss who are the key thinkers. They are called the Gang of Four in French theory, namely Derrida, Foucault, Barthes, and Lacan. We are going to discuss these in details. To begin with, if you remember, last time we explored structuralism, ambition to uncover the deep structures, the lingo that govern cultural phenomena. Structuralism gave us powerful tools such as narratology, semiotics, the analysis of myth. But today we encounter a series of thinkers who, building on structuralism's own premises, push them to the point where the very idea of a stable structure collapses. So post-structuralism is not a unified school, it is a set of critical practices that share a suspicion of centers, origins, and final meanings. So structuralism promise was a scientific, universal grammar of culture, stable meaning through binary opposition and deep structures. On the other hand, now post-structuralism's response to this structuralist promise is those structures are not universal, they are not stable, and they are not self-contained. The meaning is indeterminate, deferred, and contingent on power, history, and language itself. So the key shift is from structure to anti-structure, from structure that guarantees meaning to the play of signification that endlessly postpones it. The key shift is from structure that guarantees meaning to the play of signification that endlessly postpones it. Means that there is no solid for post-structuralists. There is not a kind of solid structure which we need to look. We need to look into the anti-structure in order to comprehend the meaning of any literary work. Uh, the key thinkers in this uh, school of thought, or this, you might say, a group of thinkers which are grouped because of their anti-structure uh, approach. Uh, the familiar and the most popular of them are Jacques Derrida, Michael Foucault, Jacques Lacan, and Roland Barthes. If you remember, Barthes to begin with was a structuralist, but then shifted towards post-structuralism. So they are called the Gang of Four, the French theory. Basically, There is no official roster, but critics, when the critics of literature say Gang of Four, they actually mean that there are four French thinkers who are the post-structuralists, and they actually are called Gang of Four. They usually who showed up together in anthologies and syllabi. It's not like they have certain things in common, but it's not like they are the same kind of thinkers because if you remember, I told you that post-structuralism is not a unified school. It is a set of critical practices, and these practices are basically put forward by these uh, four French theorists, Derrida, Foucault, Barthes, and Lacan. Uh, Jacques Derrida, he basically is considered to be a pioneer of deconstructionism or post-structuralism. A deconstruction meaning for him, meaning is unstable, binaries collapse, so they are not stable. Uh, we are going to discuss it in detail later on. Michel Foucault, uh, he basically did his discourse power analysis. For him, truth is produced by institutions, and it's again, it's not something stable. For Lacan, he was a psychoanalyst. The unconscious is structured like a language for Lacan, and Barthes is in Death of Author renders that readers make meaning and not the authors. So that's why these four names are very much important in post-structuralism rather, and they because for all of them were French, so their theory is called a French theory. So moving on, uh, as we have seen, there is a difference between structuralism and post-structuralism. The main thing is post-structural response to the promise of structuralists. That's a scientific universal grammar for culture, stable meaning through binary oppositions and deep structures. Post-structuralists don't think so. For them, these structures are not universal, they are not stable, not self-contained, and meaning is indeterminate, deferred, and contingent. It's not stable. So the key shift is from the structure that guarantees meaning to the play of signification that endlessly uh, postpones it. So the play of signification basically means uh, the instability of and meaning. So we'll start from the first French post-structuralist in the list, and who's Jacques Derrida. Before that, I would like to tell you that the post-structuralist stance is the deep structure is not universal, it is contingent and exclusionary, meaning does not reside in a system of difference that can be mapped once and for all. It is endlessly deferred. And the subject, author, reader, character is not stable source of meaning, but a product of language, discourse, and power. So historically, post-structuralism emerges from French intellectual scene uh, in late 60s. The failure of May 68 uprising disillusioned many leftist intellectuals with Marxism and structuralism's apparent scientism. They turned instead to Nietzsche, Heidegger, and Freud, seeking ways to question the authority of structure. So these post-structuralists basically uh, They got their inspiration from philosophers like Nietzsche, Heidegger, and other and Freud, obviously. And then they put forward their own theory. So we start from Derrida and Derrida's deconstruction. The most famous and often misunderstood figure of post-structuralism is Jacques Derrida. His project deconstruction is not a method you can apply like a recipe. Rather, it is a critical practice that attends to the way texts undermine their own claims to stable meaning. So, logocentrism, the Western philosophical traditions search for center, a transcendental signified like God, truth, reason, the author, that would stop the play of meaning. So the first point he makes, he argues that Western philosophy has been dominated by a metaphysics of presence. A metaphysics of presence, the desire for a foundation, the desire for a center, or a transcendental signified God, truth being the subject, etc., that would arrest the endless play of signification. He calls this desire logocentrism because it privileges the logos, the reason, the speech, the word of God as the site of full presence. So logocentrism for him, it's because it's the reason of logocentrism is metaphysics of presence, the belief that meaning is something fully present in speech or consciousness in the author's intention. But Derrida goes on and challenges it. There is no center and says the meaning is produced by deference and deferral, not by presence. So it's post-structuralists believe that the meanings of the text are not stable and they have the meaning is produced by difference and deference. Like the meaning is changing, it's not stable. For structuralism, the structure was the center, that center, but for Derrida, what structures the structure? He asks the question, what is that structure which structures? Where does the center come from? The center, he argues, is a paradox. It is a part of the structure, yet also outside it. It is not a fixed point, but a function. Please mute your mic. So from logocentrism, the reason for logocentrism for him is metaphysics of presence. And he challenges this view and says that it's not the meaning is not produced, meaning is just stable. There is no center. Meaning is produced by deference and deferral. So what is deference? What is deference for him? For Derrida, deference, neologism, combination, differer, to differ and to defer. So the essence for him is to differ and to defer. Meaning arises from differences between the signs, as Saussure would say, and to defer. For by to defer, he means meaning is never fully present. It is postponed along an infinite change of signifiers. So consequently, the signifier never reaches a final signified. It only points to another signifier, meaning it is a trace of what it is not. Again, to challenge the metaphysics of presence, uh, Derrida coins the neologism, which is difference. It combines two meanings of the French verb differ, to differ, and to differ. Differ, this recall Saussure's principle that meaning is relational based on differences between the signs. And to differ, meaning is never fully present. It is postponed as one of the signifier leads to another on endless chain. The difference is not a concept, it is that which makes the play of signification possible. As a result, there is no ultimate signified, no transcendental signified. Derrida famously writes the French expression, there is no outside text. So there is nothing outside text. This does not mean that everything is in text in the sense of a book. Rather, it means that we never have access to a pure pre-linguistic reality. So we can never grasp, we can never have access to the pure or pre-linguistic reality. Everything we encounter is already interpretable, already mediated. So whatever comes to us, it is not pure. It is always uh, interpretable. It is all already mediated. So deconstruction as a practice, it's not, as I said earlier, for Derrida, deconstruction is not a concept, it's a practice, basically. So does deconstruction do in practice? That is the question. He starts with that long centrism, the metaphysics of presence, moves to the difference or to differ or to differ, and then the third move he makes is the deconstruction of practice. So what does it mean? What does deconstruction do in practice? It does not seek to demolish text. Instead, it identifies binary oppositions that structure a text. For example, speech writing, nature culture, soul body, male, female. Then shows that one term is privilege. It is associated with presence, the truth, the origin, and then demonstrates that the privileged term depends on the subordinated term for its meaning. Moreover, the text often contains traces of the subordinated term that undermine the hierarchy. The key example, Derrida's reading of Rousseau in Of Grammatology writing is treated as a dangerous supplement to speech, yet speech itself is already structured like writing. Reverse or destabilize the hierarchy, not to create a new hierarchy, but to show that the opposition was never stable to begin with. So his reading, Derrida's reading of grammatology of Rousseau in grammatology, Rousseau condemns writing as a dangerous supplement to speech, a corruption that replaces authentic presence. But Derrida shows that speech itself is already marked by difference. There is no pure self-present speech. The supplement is actually what makes the thing possible. Writing is not a fall from speech. It is the condition of possibility for all signification. This is what Derrida calls art writing. I think there's a problem with the connection. Um, so we have discussed Derrida, and in next lecture we will try to discuss Foucault, Barthes, and Lacan in the context of post-structuralism. I think I've lost the connection. So if you can hear me, I'll see you in next lecture. Thank you very much.